Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And Śrīla Prabhupāda got all the way to the third canto of the Bhagavatam in his translation and commentary, and then he stopped because he realized that he could leave the world at any time. He had already had 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta, so he took up this summarization of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam before he continued on to the 4th canto. And he also, along with his translation, had engaged about a dozen artists to paint the pictures that corresponded with Krishna's Leela. And many of the artists were neophytes in painting and in devotional service. Some were better than others. And they came to Prabhupada and they said, we're brand new. How will we paint anything that will resemble the Supreme Personality of Godhead with our insufficient skills and our fledgling devotion? And Prabhupada said, you stay in front of the canvas and pray. And they did, and as they prayed and they painted, and as they asked more and more questions of Prabhupada, which is one of the reasons the translations and the publications took longer than usual, longer than most books. Of course, Prabhupada moved at lightning speed. He had a whole crew of devotees that worked in helping to edit the text that Prabhupada was dictating. And then there were the artists, and they would ask questions. Jadharani, one of the famous artists, said that once they came to a passage where it described how Krishna was wearing his dhoti, and they went to Prabhupada and they said, how does he wear his dhoti? And Prabhupada said, I'll show you. And he tied a dhoti around his cloth to show the method, and then they would sketched it out and they would paint that. So they consulted with Prabhupada again and again. And the reason Prabhupada was so eager to present the Krishna book was that he wanted that people of the world could hear the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. As is explained in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Krishna in Vrindavan is the topmost conception of God, but to speak of the fact that even the demons he kills are instantly liberated. Putana, for example, is someone that Brahma, in his prayers in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, says, my dear Lord, have you reserved any mercy for anyone else? He says, it seems that you gave away all your mercy to Putana. How could you have reserved any more for anyone else? His pastimes in Vrindavan charm the mind, touch the heart, and even those who are inimical to Krishna in Vrindavan are liberated and given a service in the spiritual world. Prabhupada wanted that to be available, as is mentioned in the 10th canto also, 2nd chapter, Yene Ravindakshava Muktamaninas Tvayastabhava Davashudha Buddhaya Aruya Krishna Parampadam Tata Patantyato Nadrita Yushmadangraya. That unless one has a conception of the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there's no safe place anywhere. One will slip from whatever situation one's in unless one has reestablished one's relationship with Krishna, the spiritual world. Therefore, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is very direct in explaining how important it is to develop faith in Him directly and not indirectly. Here in this place, we are treated to continuation of the pastime of the wives of the Brahmins who had gone to see Krishna in the forest. The story is that Krishna was with his cowherd boyfriends, and they claimed to be hungry, although they were interested in seeing Krishna eat something. So Krishna asked them to go and beg food from the brahmanas who were about to perform a sacrifice. And he said, don't ask in my name, because I'm from a Vaishya family. Ask in Balaram's name, because these Brahmins, they're very caste conscious, he said. So if you ask in Balaram's name, he's a Kshatriya. So maybe they'll be more accommodating. So the cowherd boys went in and said, Krishna and Balaram are in the forest, they're hungry. The response of the brahmanas who were preparing for the sacrifice was a no response. They didn't say anything. They didn't even acknowledge the cowherd boys, which meant they didn't acknowledge Krishna, because the representative of Krishna should be recognized as Krishna himself. Just as if a representative of a company comes and you mistreat him, he's going to go back and say, you mistreated the whole company. They disregarded me, as in they dissed me. And the cowherd boys came back feeling dejected, and they told Krishna, Balaram, what had happened. And Krishna said, don't feel bad. That is the way of begging. If those who were to give and being asked by beggars knew how hard it was to beg, they'd always give. And if beggars knew how hard it was to give, they'd never beg. But he said, don't mind, just go to the wives of the brahmanas. The wives were especially engaged in cooking for the yajna. Now these wives were very special because in their preparation for cooking for the yajnas, for their husband, they would go shopping. Time was barter. At the time there was barter system, a barter system. And while they were in different marketplaces, there were residents of Vrindavan who would be there trading various goods. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bodhayanta parasparam, katayantaśchamam nityam, tushanti cha ramanti cha. The preoccupation of the devotees is that they always speak about Krishna, cow coming through. And by that incidental hearing from these pure devotees in the marketplace, the wives of the Brahmins began to develop an attraction for Krishna within their heart. Same thing with Rukmini Devi. She had never met Krishna, never seen Krishna. There was no Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat. But she had heard about him in the royal assembly. People spoke about Krishna, and her mind became attracted so much so that her heart was so dedicated that she made prayers that said, Krishna, I'm to be your wife. And if I can't be your wife, then I'll perform such austerities that I'll leave my body again and again and again until you accept me as your wife. That was her determination. This is what happens from hearing Krishna Katha. The transformation takes place within the core of the hearts of the devotees when they hear about Krishna. And in the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter, Krishna says that even people who aren't yet devotees, if they're submissive and they like to hear from authorities and they hear from those who are speaking about Krishna, they'll also take to the path of devotional service and come to the highest level of devotion, eventually just by hearing. So when the cowherd boys went to see the wives of the brahmanas, they walked in and they started to describe their needs, which were that they needed some food for Krishna. And before they finished their request, the wives of the Brahmins began collecting as much as they could hold, and they made their way to the forest where Krishna was waiting. There described a heart-rending scene where Krishna embraces them within their hearts. Of course, Krishna is already within our hearts, and there's a way in which He can embrace us from within our hearts. The wives observed Krishna holding a lotus flower and twirling it in his hand, as if to say that I've taken you on as my eternal devotees. And there in the forest they requested Krishna to stay with him. But he said, no, you should go home. He said, we can't go home. We've left everything now. But he said, I'll arrange it so that you can go back. And when they went back, their husbands had a change of heart. See, the Bhagavatam turns everything on its head, the culture, to show that bhakti is supreme. As an example, in the story of Bali Maharaj, the Guru said, don't do it. And Bali said, no, that's all right. No, yeah, I'll do it anyway. Because he could understand that it was the right thing to do to serve Krishna. In the Rig Veda, Vritasura is considered a big demon, enemy of Indra, but in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vritasura is the hero and is exalted, whereas Indra looks like a weakling, afraid to fight, and what to speak of being self-serving, even as he was doing his duty. And in this pastime, the wives are the heroes, the heroines of the story, because they have devotion. So when they came back, their husbands were cursing themselves and their inability to recognize Krishna when he came to them in the form of the cowherd boys. And they also began to glorify their wives as pure devotees. But even then, they were afraid to go to Krishna because of the atmosphere created by Kamsa, which is fearful, that anyone who cohorted with Krishna or tried to support him would be killed. The next day, it appears that the Indra Yajna was being performed. Our acharyas say, although these stories are contiguous in the Srimad Bhagavatam, chronologically they're not. But philosophically they are, because the next day you find that the devotees, Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd men, are setting up for Indra Yajna. And Krishna comes along and says, what are you doing? What's all this paraphernalia? Is this something that you do automatically by social custom, or is there some good result from this? They say, oh, we've been doing since as far as anyone can remember for generations, because we depend on agriculture and the cows, and Indra provides rain. And Krishna said, but he provides rain to the ocean too. The ocean didn't do any yajna. So how is it that you think your yajna is special for him? And Krishna spoke atheistic philosophies, karma mimamsa philosophy, just in the course of bewildering the minds of Nanda Maharaj. So he said, okay, as Krishna convinced his father that we'll do the yajna some other time, and Krishna said, no, let's worship Govardhan Hill and take all the paraphernalia you were going to use for the Indra Yajna and just use it to worship Govardhan Hill. So they did that with great pageantry, just the way Krishna said to do it. And afterwards, Indra became angry, tried to kill everybody in Vrindavan. And after he realized that he had no effect at all, he went to Brahma and he said, what should I do? Brahma said, well, once I also offended Krishna by stealing his cows and boys. But this is a little different. You try to kill him. he got good advice to find Surabhi, the queen of the cows, and stand behind her and come and ask for forgiveness from Krishna. We'll go to Surabhi Kund if there's enough time. That's a place in which one can ask Krishna for forgiveness. But when Krishna met with Indra, he arranged to meet him in a solitary place. And you can read the commentary of Śrīla Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that when he met Indra, he said, I hope I have not offended you. Krishna said to Indra, I hope I've not offended you or caused you any inconvenience. Krishna is so sweet and kind to someone who just tried to kill everybody in Vrindavan. And Indra offered his prayers. And in these two pastimes, we can refer back to the Bhagavad Gita, very straightforward instructions Krishna gives, and take heart. In the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, starting at verse number 20, Kamaistaiste hrityajnana prapadyantenya devata tam tam niyamamastaya prakrita niyatasvaya. That if somebody does some kind of worship that's not directed towards Krishna, he says, hrityajnana, their knowledge has been stolen by illusion. They're mistaken. Then he says, Kamaistaiste hrityajnana prapadyantenya devata tam tam niyamamastaya prakrita niyatasvaya yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta shradayarchitamichiti tasya tasya chalam shadham tameva vidadham yaham. He says, so anyway, if you go to demigods or anybody separately from Krishna, he says, Krishna says, I'm instilling the faith within the worshipper's heart. And what's more, I'm the one providing the result through them. So why not cut out the middleman? Why go to somebody else? It's all coming from me anyway. And then he says, Antabatu palam tesham tadbabat yalpamedasam devan deva yajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. If you get some benediction from somebody else besides Krishna, he says, it's limited and temporary. You won't be happy with it anyway. It's something that Brahma commented about when Hiranyakashipu, after all his great sacrifice and austerity, to say the least, he then asked for some material benediction, and Brahma kind of rolled his eyes and said, whatever, but it's not going to work out, because whatever benediction you ask for, make sure you can handle it. And the truth is, we can't handle any material benediction because we're not material. Anything that we get that's based on the slightest desire for enjoying the material world will disappoint us to the core. So Krishna very kindly directs us to our real interest in life through these two stories and through the direct instructions he gives in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is, Ananyas chintayantamam yejana paripasite tesham nityab yuktanam yogaksham shemam bahamyaham. Don't worry if you give all of your devotion to me and you absorb all your attention in me. What to speak of time? We read in a purport recently, well, it wasn't recent, it was about 10 years ago. I just got to come clean on that one. Where Prabhupada says, quoting this verse, Ananyas chintayantamam, if a devotee is so absorbed in devotional service that he or she doesn't have time to do his or her duties properly in the world, said, don't worry, Krishna will cover for you everything. And he does it personally. Vahami means he'll personally come and deal with it. Try it. See what happens. Ananyas chintayantamam. Actually, be careful. Don't be artificial. That's the main point. So Govinda Kund is a place of intense, loving devotion to Krishna. And we see how after Indra came, brought Surabhi, bathed Krishna with Surabhi's milk, Airavata was here. He helped to do the Abhishekam. He can pour a lot of water and other substances collected for the Abhishek. The demigods came down. They also gave paraphernalia, very nice paraphernalia. And after they had gone, the cowherd boys came. They had seen some of these demigods and they were wondering who were all these people. They began to explain to some of the cowherd men, yeah, we saw there was a four-headed guy here. Because they wanted to know, where'd you get all this paraphernalia? There was a four-headed guy here. There was a guy with eyes all over his body. There was this huge elephant. They were all bathing Krishna. They were all praising him. And they gave him a name, Govinda. And as usual, cowherd boys, really? Okay. So the Kunds all around are said to have been filled by the Abhishek, and Govinda Kund is a place where Mādhavendra Purī came and sat down, and in samadhi, dreamlike state, Krishna came and revealed how he had been buried, hidden by the pujaris in the bush here. And that's another pastime, but this whole area is rife with pastimes, and coming to this place where Indra surrendered, where Krishna was glorified and anointed as the king of the cows. You can see Govardhan Hill, and on the other side you can see Govinda Kund. And it's a nice place to come if you can, early in the morning when the sun's coming up. It's a little quieter. And also you can see the sunlight or the redness on the Kund itself. And you can just sit here and chant, and it's very beautiful early in the morning. Just some pilgrims walking around Govardhan Hill. Om Tat Sat. Now we're going to go to the Śrīla temple. Śrīla temple, you have to climb up a few steps, but it's worth it to get the mercy of Narhari Dev. It's said that he protects those, we know from Bhagavatam, main prayer, Om Namo Bhagavate Narashinghaya, Namastejas Tejase Avir Avir Bhava, Rajranaka Vajradamsa Kamasaya, Randaya Randaya, Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha, Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Bhuyishta Om Shraum. That he protects those who come to Govardhan Hill and are walking around, as the verse says, from harboring material desires. That's the main danger, if I harbor material desires within the heart. I mentioned Mādhavendra Purī, and here is this little shrine to Mādhavendra Purī. If you want to, you could offer obeisances and make a prayer to Śrīla Mādhavendra Purī to become free from nirmāna. I mean, man, but we should become nirmāna. Which Mādhavendra Purī, when he found out that he was going to be glorified, he left town. And we should also, Krishna says, be nirmāna-mohā, jita-saṅga-doṣā. Nirmāna means, man means the man. Like you're the man. So nirmāna means, don't be the man. Let Krishna be the man and be very humble. So here we can pray to Mādhavendra Purī. You can pray whatever you wish, but it's just a suggestion. To ask Mādhavendra Purī to have this sense of deep humility and not wanting anything in return for our devotional service. Dear Śrīla Prabhupāda, dear Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Mādhavendra Purī Pāda, if you so desire, please let us embrace the verse tṛṇād sunīcena and become free from māna, or the desire for recognition in our devotional service. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer, in whole or in part, say Haribol. Haribol. Vanchakalpatarusha kripasindave vachapatitanam pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Uparjange.